everybody, and welcome to Lessons in My Living Room. Today's lesson is going to be on the parts of the ukulele. So hopefully you have your instrument. In my classroom, usually on the second day of our uke lessons, we go over the parts of the instrument. And the reason that's important is because before you use anything, whether it's an instrument or a machine or just anything, it's important to understand the different parts of it, how it's made up, so you understand how it works, kind of what to do, what not to do, maybe knowing the parts so that when we play it and I say put your hand at the head or put your finger on the 3rd fret or strum the G or A string or C string or E string, it's just important to kind of be able to reference those parts while we're playing. So we're going to start from the very top of the instrument, starting with this part right up here, which is called the head. The head is just kind of what it sounds like, the top of the instrument. It's where we have these things which are the pegs or the tuners. So kind of jumping ahead, the pegs and the tuners, we use those parts to make a string longer or shorter. So take a guess before I show you. If I were to loosen the peg, do you think the pitch of the string is going to get higher or lower? Take a guess. If I loosen the string, do you think the pitch is going to get higher or lower? Okay, so now we'll find out. I'm going to pluck the string and I'm going to loosen it. Oh, it helped to do the right one. So is the note getting higher or lower? And if you keep doing that, eventually the string, see how it's getting like looser? I don't know if you can see that here, but if you keep loosening it, eventually it's gonna come off and you'll have to rewind it. So don't loosen it too much. So if I am going to tighten it, the pitch is going to go up or it's gonna get higher. So don't try this at home, because if you tighten it too hard, the neck can actually snap off. So it's important to not really abuse the tuners or the pegs. We want to get to this note. We're about there. So the pegs, the head is the top of the instrument. The pegs or tuners are the devices we turn to make the string change the pitch or to make it longer or shorter, to make it looser or tighter. So that's kind of the top of the instrument. Oh, it's kind of out of tune now. That's okay. So head, pegs. Now we have a lot of stuff going on this kind of middle area. And we're going to start with the back side, which is called the neck. And the neck is kind of where you hold it when you have your hand behind the neck. It's at the top by the head. Like so. So the neck is the back side, kind of where you hold it. And like we talked about yesterday, when you hold your instrument, you want your hand kind of at the top like this, nice and securely around the instrument. So it's not going to fall out of your hands. A lot of times I see my students doing kind of this weird thing where they're separating their hand from the neck, but you want to hold it securely so it doesn't fall, and also then your hands and your fingers are right here to play the chords. So neck is on the back. The front side, we have a lot of stuff going on. So this black part, this long black strip kind of on the front of the neck, we called it the fretboard, and the fretboard is just basically the place where the frets live. The frets are these little metal bars, and if you guessed that it's where you put your fingers, you're correct. So when we start playing chords, which maybe you learned the C chord already, you're gonna be using those frets as reference points on the fretboard, and I'm gonna tell you put your ring finger on the A string right before the 3rd fret to make the C chord, or use the 2nd and the 1st fret to make the F chord. And we're gonna keep using those frets while we're playing to kind of determine where you put your fingers to play chords. Okay. Hopefully I'm not talking too fast with me so far. We have the head, and then we have the pegs, tuners, yep. Then back here is the neck. Then we got this black strip is the fretboard, and then the metal bars are the frets. Hopefully you answered those with me and I'm not just talking to myself. Okay, let's move on. So moving down, I tell my students if they get this one wrong on a quiz, I'm gonna make fun of them because it's a hole and the sound comes out of the hole, so it's the sound hole. And if you can't remember that that's the sound hole, well, that's just silly. The sound hole is important on the ukulele because it kind of gives the sound a place to reverberate and echo through. If you didn't have a sound hole, and sometimes I grab a piece of paper and show, like, if you cover up the sound hole, the sound is kind of more, it's more dull, it's not as bright, it's not as pretty, because the sound hole is, if I just pluck the strings, it's gonna make a sound, but it's not gonna give it like that pretty rich echoing sound. So here's how it sounds when I pluck it or strum it. And if you count the echo, it echoes for like a good 4 seconds. Listen again. So we're kind of like 4 seconds. If you cover up the sound hole, the sound is, I mean, this is just a piece of paper. It's my taco menu, but you can hear the sound is much more dull. Doesn't have that pretty ring, that pretty echo. So the sound hole is super important on the ukulele or on a guitar, and it, like I said, gives the sound a place to get that rich, pretty, bright echoing sound. So that's the sound hole. You could probably guess if this is the head and then this is the neck, this big part would be the body. Yeah, and the body shapes of the ukulele are all different sizes. This is a tenor ukulele, but the one you are probably using at home is a soprano ukulele. A soprano ukulele is just the smallest bodied instrument. It also has kind of the highest pitch sound. If you sing in a choir, you know a soprano is the highest voice part. So soprano ukulele is going to be the highest pitch sound. So again, this one's a little bit bigger than the ones you guys probably have at home, but the pitches of the strings are the same. G, C, E, and A. That's kind of out of tune, but you get the drill. Okay, almost done. So down here, we're going to talk about these two parts. The one I'm pointing to now, which mounts the strings onto the body, we call the bridge. And like I said, the bridge is just kind of the place where the strings are kind of glued down to the body. And then sitting on top of the bridge, we have this little white strip here, and that straightens the strings out, kind of lifts them up, and that's called the saddle. So down here is the bridge, saddle. And I tell my students, think bridge sits on the body, bridge is brown, so bridge, brown, body, and then saddle sits on top. So if you remember that, you'll kind of remember bridge versus saddle. So from the top, actually let's start from the bottom. This is the bridge, yep. Sitting on top is the saddle. And I actually forgot to teach you this part, but hopefully you know these are the strings, right? This is the sound hole. This whole beautiful curvy thing, some kids say it looks like Squidward's head, is the body. Good. Then when we get up here, we have this whole black strip is the fretboard. These metal bars are the frets. Good job. Back here we hold it up top at the neck. Good. And like I said, kind of have your hand in that curve up here, kind of in between the L of your fingers, right up there, holding it sturdy. And then up here we have the head, and then we have 4 pegs or tuners that correspond with each string. Good. Just a review for holding your instrument, your hand should be at the head, like I said, kind of up, supported on the neck, kind of at the neck and the head. And then your instrument body, the smooth part of the body, should kind of be like against your stomach. So if you kind of slouch over, it is not going to like go there very well. So kind of sit up, make sure it's kind of pressed against your body with your forearm right here. And when you're strumming, when we learn about the parts, we also learn about where the sweet spot is on the ukulele. So the sweet spot is going to be where you want to play, where it sounds the sweetest, the clearest, the prettiest, the most ringing, and all instruments are different. So I'm going to start down here at the bridge area, and I'm going to stop playing kind of right up here where the fretboard starts. And I want you to listen and tell me where you think my sweet spot is. Like, where does it sound the prettiest? So see, that's kind of not too bright sounding. As I get down more, like right there, I think, sounds like the prettiest, right? Versus this, which is a little more dull. So what I want you to do now is start from the bottom and kind of slowly strum. And decide where your sweet spot is. And that's where you're going to want to strum when you're playing the instrument. So I'm not going to strum down here or like way up here. I'm going to strum kind of right in the middle where the strings and the fretboard kind of touch. But every instrument's different. So yours might be more like over the sound hole, or maybe it's a little lower, maybe it's a little higher, but you can kind of decide that for yourself. So your homework assignment with this is you're going to draw a picture of your beautiful ukulele. Also give it a name because you want to bond with it and like decide if it's a boy or a girl, or kind of just decide so you can name it so you guys can be friends. And then so draw your instrument, and I want you to label all the parts. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and including your sweet spot, I want you also to label the sweet spot. So that would be 11. So you should have a drawing of the instrument. It's okay if you're not a good artist. Give it a name, and then I want you to label 11 parts on the instrument, and then send that to me. That is your homework. Enjoy. Thank you for playing along.